I wasn't even supposed to be home that day.
Someone's inside
And that's
my house.
probably the only reason I saw it happen.
This isn't right.
Because if I had followed my normal routine, none of this would have been
You
caught.
don't have permission
And they would
to
have
be
walked
here.
in and out like they owned the
And then
place.
what's the grandma into
I had just pulled
Labyrinth,
into the
the
driveway
Martian, a roaster
when
was
something
the
felt
witcher.
off the front door. Wasn't
They've been
fully
touching my
closed,
stuff.
not wide open, just
I'm
slightly
really
pushed
selling
in,
Scarlet's
like
Lake
someone had
today.
been careless, or maybe too confident. For a second, I just sat there in the car watching,
You just
because
made
that
a
kind of thing doesn't
huge
happen for no reason,
mistake.
not in a quiet neighborhood like this. Then I noticed movement inside, not clear, not loud, just enough to know someone was in there. That's when everything changed. I stepped out slowly, not making noise, not reacting too fast, because my mind was already racing through possibilities. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone had the wrong house. Maybe. But deep down, I already knew. This wasn't random. I walked closer and the door moved slightly, as if someone had just touched it from inside, and that was all the confirmation I needed. Someone was inside my house. Without permission, I pushed the door open and stepped in, and the first thing I saw made everything clear. Two people standing in my living room, looking around, not confused, not surprised, but comfortable, like they had every right to be there. And then I recognized one of them, HOA. That same person who had been sending notices arguing about violations, acting like they had authority over everything. And now they were inside my house. That's when the situation stopped being confusing and became something else completely. I didn't shout. I didn't rush forward. I just stood there for a second, letting the moment settle. Because sometimes staying calm shows more control than reacting. One of them turned and saw me, and for the first time there was hesitation. Not fear, but something close enough to notice. He immediately started talking, saying they were inspecting something related to a complaint, saying it was part of HOA responsibility, saying it like it was normal. But nothing about this was normal. You don't walk into someone's home without permission. Not like this. Not ever. I looked around quickly and noticed small things, drawers slightly open. Things moved from where I left them. Nothing major, but enough to tell me they had already been going through my space. That crossed the line. Completely. I pulled out my phone and started recording without saying anything. And that's when their behavior changed instantly. The confidence dropped. The tone shifted. Suddenly they weren't explaining anymore. They were justifying, trying to sound official, trying to make it seem like this was allowed. But it wasn't, and they knew it. One of them told me to stop recording, saying this was a private HOA matter, and that right there confirmed everything, because if it was truly official, they wouldn't care. But they did a lot. I didn't stop. I kept recording every word, every movement, every excuse. Because now this wasn't just about them being inside. This was about proving it. They stayed for a few more seconds trying to talk their way out of it. But the moment they realized I wasn't backing down, they moved toward the door quickly. Too quickly. No proper explanation. No paperwork. Nothing. They just left. And just like that, my house was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same, because now I knew something important. They didn't just cross a line. They ignored it completely. I stood there for a moment, looking around at my own space, trying to process what just happened, because this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was a decision. They chose to walk in. They chose to act like it was allowed, and now they were going to have to deal with what comes after that. I looked down at my phone, the recording still running, capturing everything clearly. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to end with a complaint. This was going to end with consequences. I didn't confront them again that day, and I didn't call the HOA either, because at that point, I already understood something important.
I didn't react.
Reacting emotionally would only make things easier for them. But what I had now
recorded
was something they couldn't
everything.
ignore. Proof. clear recorded proof of
They
them
had
inside my house
zero
without permission.
legal right
So instead
to
of making
enter my
noise,
house.
I stayed quiet for the next day. Everything felt normal on the surface. No new notices, no emails, no calls, like nothing had happened. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. They were hoping I would let it go, pretend it didn't happen, move on, but I didn't. That night, I sat down and watched the footage again, carefully. Not just what they said, but how they said it. Their body language, their confidence. The moment it disappeared, everything was there. And more importantly, it was clear they knew they weren't supposed to be there. And that changed everything the next morning. I didn't go to work instead. I went straight to get copies of my property rights, local access laws, and HOA limitations, because I wanted everything aligned before making a move. Not guesses, not emotions, just facts. And the facts were simple. They had no legal right to enter my home. None, not for inspection, not for complaints, not for anything. Later that afternoon, I made one call, not to argue, not to threaten, but to report exactly what happened with evidence ready and within hours. The tone of everything shifted completely by evening. I got an email from the HOA, and this time it didn't sound confident. It didn't sound demanding. It sounded careful. Too careful, they called it a misunderstanding, said it was an accidental entry, and that they were reviewing internal procedures. But that wasn't the part that mattered. The part that mattered was what came next. They asked me not to take further action. That's when I knew they understood the situation. Now they knew how serious it was, but I didn't respond immediately.